What can happen in 90 minutes? For most, it is an idle afternoon, a passing moment. But on a sweltering August morning in 1892, within the suffocating confines of a house on 2nd Street, 90 minutes became an eternity, a chasm of silence between two brutal events. The official record tells a story of locked doors, a missing key, and a crime scene of chilling precision. It speaks in the cold language of forensics and timelines. But another story unfolds in parallel, told in the hushed, contradictory whispers of the sole witness left standing. A story of searching for fishing sinkers in a dusty barn, of eating pears in the oppressive heat, of ironing handkerchiefs, while a storm of violence gathered under her own roof. This is not the story of the crime you think you know. This is a journey into that 90-minute void. We will peel back the layers of polite society and peer into the shadows of a troubled mind, asking not only who, but why. Weaving a web of lies to conceal an unthinkable truth, the house on 92 2nd Street was not a home. It was a container for resentments. August of 1892 was suffocating, and the Borden's residence offered no relief. It was a narrow, upright structure, deliberately devoid of the modern comforts Andrew Borden could easily afford. There was no running water, no connected plumbing, which on a sweltering summer day turned the air thick with unspoken grievances. The day before the incident, the family had been ill, suffering from a stomach ailment some attributed to spoiled food. A swordfish left out too long, or perhaps the mutton broth that lingered in the icebox, a testament to Mr. Borden's severe frugality. This was the texture of their lives, a constant, low-grade discomfort. Abby, the stepmother, was seen by the daughters, Lizzie and Emma, as an interloper who had secured a property transfer from their father, an act they viewed as a financial betrayal. Emma was conveniently away, visiting friends in Fairhaven, but Lizzie remained. At 32, she was an unmarried Sunday school teacher, a pillar of local society, yet trapped within these stifling walls. She was a woman of considerable social ambition, living a life of imposed austerity. The air in the house was heavy not just with heat, but with the weight of things unsaid, of ambitions thwarted, and of a quiet, simmering rage that had nowhere to go. Every shadow in the hall seemed to whisper of a pressure building to an inevitable breaking point. Time, on that Thursday morning, moved with a deceptive normalcy. The 90-minute window, a space now frozen in infamy, began without fanfare. At approximately 9 a.m., Andrew Borden, his uncle John Morse, who had stayed the night, and Abby Borden sat down for their final breakfast together. The menu was, as always, frugal. Leftover mutton, johnny cakes, and coffee. Shortly after, Mr. Morse departed to visit relatives, and Mr. Borden left for his downtown business rounds, a walk he had taken countless times. His departure is clocked at around 9:30 a.m. This is when the window opens. Inside the house, only 3 women remained. Abby Durfee Borden, the stepmother, ascended the main staircase, her task to tidy the guest room where Morse had slept. Seal is tinderkast, herming naar the guest room where Fura had slept. Tinderras, wow. Der geschissene ras. Irustin rav. Bridget Sullivan, the maid, having recovered from her illness, went outside to the side yard to wash the exterior windows, her movements a rhythmic, mundane counterpoint to the stillness within. And then there was Lizzie. She was the only person accounted for on the ground floor. She was the pivot upon which the entire timeline would turn. The house was quiet. The street outside was busy with the sounds of a waking city. The clip-clop of horses, the calls of vendors. But inside, a different kind of quiet was descending. It was a silence filled with potential, a vacuum, waiting to be filled. For the next 90 minutes, the house on 2nd Street became a sealed stage, with its secrets held tightly within its walls, witnessed only by the one person who remained at its heart. The first silence fell at approximately 10:40 a.m. Andrew Borden, having finished his business earlier than expected, returned home. The front door was reportedly difficult to open. Bridget Sullivan, still washing windows, had to let him in. Lizzie, according to her own account, was downstairs. She mentioned that Mrs. Borden had received a note and gone out. She helped her father remove his boots, and he, weary from the heat and his morning walk, lay down upon the horsehair sitting room sofa for a nap. This was a man of rigid habits, and a midday rest was not unusual. Bridget finished her windows and retired to her third-floor room for her own rest. With that, the house fell into a profound stillness. The only sounds were the drowsy buzzing of flies and the distant hum of the city. This was the moment of transition. The sitting room, a place of formal family gatherings, was about to become a chamber of absolute stillness. The next known event is Lizzie's call from the foot of the stairs. "Maggie, come down. Father's gone, someone has come in and taken him." The discovery shattered the quiet. But what happened in the moments between his repose and her cry? The air on the ground floor grew heavy, charged with a terrible finality. A life had been extinguished on that sofa, not with a bang, but with a series of quiet, focused impacts that left the surrounding room largely undisturbed. The silence that preceded the alarm was the silence of completion. One must understand the simple logic of a household. Certain items are kept in certain places, designated for specific purposes. For a fishing tackle, for the small lead sinkers one needs for a line, one naturally goes to the barn. It is as simple and as plain as that. The air in the loft was a physical weight, a smothering blanket woven from oppressive heat and the scent of ancient, unsettled dust. Sharp, brilliant blades of white-hot sunlight cut through the gloom from the high windows, illuminating a swirling, chaotic universe of tiny floating particles. It was there I went, to perform this simple, mundane task. The heat was, I shall readily admit, quite considerable. It pressed in from all sides, making the air thick and difficult to draw. To bide my time while I conducted my search, and perhaps to find some small, private relief from the atmosphere, I ate a few pears I had brought up with me. People have since made such an unseemly fuss about those pears. As if a woman of good standing cannot enjoy a piece of fruit in a moment of quiet, solitary contemplation. They question the location, the timing, the very nature of the act. They fail to comprehend that a person's private actions are not always staged for a judging audience. I was entirely alone. The world outside the barn doors was a distant, indistinct hum, muffled by the thick wooden walls and the profound stillness of that August morning. I recall hearing the city hall bell chime the hour, a faint, metallic punctuation in the heavy silence. But it meant little to me then. My focus was on the task at hand, sifting through old boxes and forgotten, rusted implements. The scent of dry hay and packed earth was the only immediate reality. After a time, having found nothing of use, I decided to abandon the fruitless search. As I descended the steep, narrow ladder, my hand gritty with grime and dust, a change became unnervingly apparent. The quiet that greeted me at the bottom was not the same one I had left behind only a short while before. It was a deeper, more absolute silence, a void. The familiar morning sounds of the house, the ticking clock, the movement from upstairs, had ceased entirely. A chill, entirely out of place in the sweltering day, traced an icy path down my spine as my hand reached for the kitchen door. The official timeline contracts to a suffocating 90 minutes, a void into which 2 lives vanished. But for Lizzie, this void is filled with activity. A carefully curated sequence of domestic tasks that form the bedrock of her alibi. Her primary sanctuary in this narrative is the barn. She places herself in the upper loft, a space that on a sweltering August morning would have been an airless oven, thick with the oppressive scent of dry hay and baked dust. The stated purpose, a search for lead sinkers, for a future fishing excursion that never materialized. It is here, she claims, she lingered, eating pears from the trees in the yard, a detail of such serene, pastoral normalcy it feels almost defiant. A proper lady, alone, enjoying a piece of fruit, while unimaginable events transpire a mere 100 feet away. Yet, this interlude is not a fixed point in her testimony. Later, under the pressure of official inquiry, the narrative subtly shifts. The time in the barn shrinks, and a new scene is introduced. Ironing handkerchiefs in the dining room, the very room adjacent to the sitting room where her father would soon be found. The rhythmic thump of the heavy flatiron, the hiss of steam on linen. Each story, whether of the pears or the iron, carves out a crucial space where she is unseen, unaccounted for. It is a masterclass in misdirection. Scattered memories of a traumatized daughter, or the carefully chosen alibis of a woman who understood, with chilling precision, the immense value of an unwitnessed moment. The first silence was the deepest, a pocket of time both cavernous and suffocating. Between roughly 9 and 10:30 on that sweltering August morning, the house on 92 2nd Street held its first terrible secret. Upstairs, in the oppressive heat of the guest room, Abby Borden's day had met a conclusion that was absolute and without ceremony. The official record coldly notes the cause, but the scene itself spoke a different language, not of a chaotic struggle, but of a swift, brutal, and shockingly personal finality. The bed was made. It was a tableau of domestic peace violently interrupted, a testament to the terrible efficiency of the act. Downstairs, life supposedly continued its mundane rhythm. I was, as I have consistently maintained, occupied with simple, placid domestic tasks. One might envision me in the stifling loft of the barn, searching for lead sinkers for a fishing line, a curious errand on such a day, for a trip that was not planned. Or perhaps one might see me in the yard, under the branches of the pear tree, sampling the last of the summer's fruit. The timeline is fluid, a story told in shifting, overlapping moments, each plausible on its own. But while these gentle narratives play out under the punishing sun, the profound silence upstairs persists, unbroken. For more than an hour, Abby lay alone, a secret kept by the house itself. No one heard a sound. No one came to check. The maid, Bridget Sullivan, was outside washing the exterior windows, her back to the home's interior drama. My father was out conducting his morning business rounds. And I was somewhere in the spaces in between, a phantom of domesticity. This first interval, this gaping pocket of unobserved, unaccounted for time, is the foundational mystery upon which the entire tragedy is built. It is the silence that makes the second, more public act possible. It is a perfect vacuum of accountability. A 90-minute void where anything could happen, and something truly terrible did. Not just with oppressive heat, but with the palpable weight of an undiscovered truth, waiting patiently for the turn of a key in the front door. The turning of that key in the lock around 10:45 a.m. broke one silence only to precipitate another, far more resonant one. Andrew Borden returned to a house that was, to all outward appearances, steeped in its usual midday torpor. He spoke briefly with Bridget and with me. He was weary from the oppressive heat in his morning's financial affairs. As was his unvarying custom, he retired to the horsehair sofa in the downstairs sitting room for a brief nap, a creature of unwavering, predictable habit. This is the precise moment the narrative fractures into irreconcilable pieces. My own account places me outside again in the barn, or perhaps upstairs for a fleeting moment, tidying my room. But the forensic story, the cold, hard language of the scene itself, tells a starkly different tale. What happened next was not a crime of passion in the typical sense. It was not a frenzied, chaotic explosion of rage that spills across a room. The attack that followed was an act of shocking, repetitive overkill, yet it was chillingly contained. The room was not ransacked. Nothing of monetary value was taken. The blows were directed with a horrifying, focused precision upon a single defenseless target. This was intensely personal. The sitting room, with its heavy curtains drawn against the glaring sun, became a dark stage for a final, grim tableau. The very absence of a struggle suggests a victim completely at rest, unaware of the approach of fate. The choice of weapon, a common household hatchet, speaks of convenience, access, and an intimate familiarity, not the calling card of a random, desperate intruder. Investigators would search the property for days, eventually turning up a hatchet head in the cellar, suspiciously clean and conspicuously missing its handle. A blue dress, allegedly stained with paint, would later be burned in the kitchen stove, an act I explained as simple housekeeping. The scene whispered of a perpetrator who knew the house, knew its rhythms, knew its secrets, and knew precisely how to erase their presence. It was the work of someone who could move through those rooms with absolute confidence, commit an act of unthinkable finality, and then meticulously restore a veneer of domestic calm. The silence that fell after my father's final moment was the silence of cold calculation. It was the quiet of a puzzle being carefully assembled, where the most crucial piece, the hand that held the weapon, had vanished, as if it were never there. The air in the inquest chamber is thick, heavy with the oppressive August heat and the weight of unspoken accusations. Here, in this formal, wood-paneled room, Lizzie Borden is not the bereaved daughter of a prominent citizen. She is a performer on a starkly lit stage. Before the assembled officials of Fall River, men she has known her entire life, she presents a carefully constructed facade of Victorian propriety. Her testimony, delivered in a measured, almost placid tone, is a masterpiece of misdirection and circular logic. One moment, she is in the stifling heat of the barn loft, searching for lead sinkers for a fishing trip she will never take. The next, she is in the yard, sampling pears from a tree, a detail of such mundane domesticity it feels jarringly absurd. Then, she is back in the house, in the dining room, preparing to iron handkerchiefs. The 90-minute window of the incident stretches and contracts with each retelling, a fluid, unreliable narrative. Her answers form a labyrinth with no center. When the district attorney presses on a direct contradiction, her memory conveniently fails, dissolving into a mist of genteel confusion. "I am feeling very confused," she states. Not with the panic of a traumatized innocent, but with a cool, almost challenging stillness that silences the room. His questions are like stones dropped into a placid, dark pool. The ripples spread, but reveal nothing of the depths below. She speaks of her father and stepmother with an unnerving, detached formality, referring to the latter only as Mrs. Borden, as if she were a distant social acquaintance. This is not the testimony of a woman shattered by a brutal event. It is the calculated, chilling performance of a woman fighting for her reputation and her life, using the only weapons she possesses. Her social standing, a feigned fragility, and the impenetrable silence that descends whenever the truth gets too close. The New Bedford Superior Court became a theater in June of 1893. The world watched, hungry for a villain or a martyr. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Jose Knowlton, built its case on circumstantial pillars. The shifting alibis, the alleged attempt to purchase prussic acid days before, and the convenient burning of a dress. Their star exhibit was a hatchet head, discovered in the cellar, its handle conspicuously absent. They argued it was the instrument of the crime, meticulously cleaned to erase all telltale traces. Every word spoken was a stone cast into the silent pool of public opinion, the ripples disturbing the carefully constructed surface of Victorian propriety. Was she a cold, calculating figure who disposed of her family for freedom and fortune? Or was she a frail, respectable woman caught in an unimaginable web, a victim of inept police work and a town's ravenous hysteria. The defense, captained by the formidable former Governor George D. Robinson, painted a portrait of unimpeachable femininity. A Sunday school teacher, a gentle soul. He argued that to convict her would be to convict the very idea of womanhood. He masterfully dismantled the prosecution's timeline, highlighting the utter lack of physical evidence, connecting me to the rooms upstairs or down. He even brought the victims' skulls into the courtroom, a macabre tactic designed to elicit sympathy. Presenting my fainting spell not as an admission of guilt, but as the natural reaction of a delicate constitution overwhelmed by heinous accusations. The trial was not merely about facts, it was a battle over perception, a referendum on what a woman of my station was, and was not, capable of. The two words, "not guilty," echoed in the stifling courtroom air, not as a declaration of innocence, but as the closing of one door and the locking of another. The acquittal did not return Lizzie to the life she knew. It sentenced her to a new, more profound isolation. She and her sister, Emma, purchased a brand new residence on the affluent part of Fall River, christening it Maplecroft. It was a fortress of respectability, but it became a gilded prison. Fall River society, which had once been her entire world, turned its back. Invitations ceased. Whispers followed her like the rustle of her own black skirts on the pavement. She was a pariah, a living ghost story told in her own hometown. The verdict of the community was absolute and unrelenting. Inside Maplecroft, Lizzie curated a life of curated silence. She hosted theater troupes from Boston, a defiant gesture of culture against the town's provincial shunning, but these were fleeting moments of noise in a life defined by its quiet. She lived another 34 years, a lifetime spent in the shadow of 90 minutes. The world moved on, but Lizzie Borden remained frozen in 1892, a perpetual suspect in the court of public opinion. The silence she maintained was her final, most ambiguous statement. Was it the quiet of a woman unjustly maligned, finding solace in solitude? Or was it the heavy, suffocating silence of a secret kept, a weight held within the walls of Maplecroft until the very end?